Okay. After surviving the 50s and 60s, as well as 20 years in toxic academia as a tenured professor, Lorraine Segal was inspired to start her own business, Conflict Remedy, which is conflictremedy.com, happily offering DEIB-informed teaching, coaching, blogging, and consulting that promote workplace conflict transformation. She has helped over 2,000 leaders in nonprofits, corporations, and small businesses improve communication, harmony, and productivity at work. She is a contributing author to the anthology Stand Up, Speak Out Against Workplace Bullying. Her recently published memoir, Angels and Earthworms, An Unexpected Journey to Love, Joy, and Miracles, is about her own transformation from miserable self-doubt to self-acceptance, true love, spiritual awareness, and right livelihood. Lorraine, thank you so much for being with me today. It's so exciting to have you.
Oh, thank you, Tegan. It's my pleasure to be here.
I'm just thrilled to speak with you today. And I'm thrilled that I found your work, Lorraine. I came across you because of articles that you have written on your website, which I'm going to link because I think everyone needs to read them, about the topic of workplace mobbing. And I was very inspired by you because I understand that while it's such an awful experience, it seemed to be something that for you personally propelled you and to do something greater and different with your life, and shows an example that as horrible as something like this is, it can be overcome. There is hope. And I want to thank you for setting that example for others and for the articles that you have written, Lorraine. And if we can get into it a little bit, can you talk about the work you do and the work that you do on workplace mobbing as well?
Sure. Well, as you said, my business is called Conflict Remedy. And I work it's all about workplace conflict and communication. And I work primarily with leaders, managers, C-suite people to help them understand and transform conflict for themselves and for the people that they manage and work with. And some of it is about inner work with self-forgiveness and recognizing the stories that we all tell ourselves about what's going on that are stories and may not be the truth. And so we can communicate better with others. And a piece of that is when I taught a 12-week program about conflict management as it was leadership development at a university, I included 1 week on bullying and mobbing because it's so common in workplaces and people get confused, as we were talking about before the recording started, about the difference between conflict and bullying and mobbing. And I thought it was crucial for, if people were going to navigate conflict more skillfully, that they understood about this. And of course, a lot of this came out of my own experience of being mobbed in an academic setting and having gone through it in the worst way imaginable and now trying to turn it into something good that helps others.
Which is so wonderful. I'm just thrilled that you're doing that, Lorraine. And I guess to start, I think there is a huge confusion between conflict between people and between harassment or bullying, or even to go a step further, mobbing. Now, in the work you do you help organizations recognize when this might be happening, or what can we talk a bit about what the difference is between those very different things, conflict and abuse?
Yes, I absolutely, I have sort of an inner checklist that I go through when people call me. Sometimes they say they want a mediator, and I don't primarily do mediation, but I realize that that's the word they know associated with conflict. So I have this inner checklist that I'm asking, okay, what's going on organizationally? What's going on within this person? Could it be racism? Could it be bullying? Could it be all these things? And I listen a lot to what people say and ask a lot of curious questions to get a sense of what's going on and what the variables might be. And just to, I think I want to start by defining mobbing too, because that's a
Please,
term people aren't really familiar with.
please.
The term mobbing actually comes from animal psychology. You think of the story of the ugly duckling, and all the ducklings attack the baby swan for being different. That's mobbing. And it's a form of bullying that happens with a group. It isn't just one person who's targeting you. It's an entire group. In my case, it was the administration and a number of my colleagues, for example.
Right.
And the difference, the simplest way to say the difference between bullying and mobbing and interpersonal conflict is two people misunderstanding each other, not getting along, clashing, saying, bad-mouthing each other, being really mad. Whereas bullying and mobbing is an assault by one person or a group against another. And it is one way, and it is, they've done studies actually with MRIs, et cetera, about neurobiology, that the impact on people of being bullied and mobbed makes the same changes in the brain as being sexually or physically assaulted.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for touching on that. Absolutely. And Lorraine, I understand that this may be a extremely broad question. I not try to break it down a little bit further. What types of organizations and people engage in mobbing behaviors towards others? Do you have any thought on that or experience with that? Please.
Yeah, the most important one sentence would be dysfunctional organizations.
Okay. Right.
Corporations, factories, nonprofits, you name it. And unfortunately, the truth is that there are so many organizations that don't function well from a place of love and harmony, that bullying and mobbing are rife. It's horrible in healthcare. Nurses get bullied and mobbed all the time. Restaurant workers, office workers, people in HR, any place that people are working, there can be bullying and mobbing. I was in academia, and healthcare are two of the areas where it's absolutely horrific and incredibly prevalent.
Okay, right. And so dysfunctional. And what types of people, aside from, say, maybe a whistleblower or something like that, or including a whistleblower, what types of people are generally targeted? And does that change all the time? Is there always sort of a new target? Could there be more than one target at the same time in your experience?
Absolutely. Definitely more than one. And there's a whole long list, unfortunately, of reasons why people get bullied and mobbed. And some of it has to do with prejudice, and some of it has to do with fear and mediocrity. So let me explain. If you are different from most of the people there, that can make you a target. If you're, LGBTQI, if you're a person of color and they're mostly white, if you have an accent, if you are from a working class background instead of a middle class background, or vice versa, and you sound different, that the difference can make you a target. And beyond that, for example, in my case, I checked off about 7 boxes. I was different. I'm a Jewish lesbian. I think I was the only one at this organization who was both, and there weren't very many lesbians or Jews there. And I also this is another common theme, unfortunately. If you're extremely competent and good at what you're doing, people who are mediocre and have unearned privilege see you as a threat. And also, if you are a change agent, so you want to make your workplace more equitable, more fair, more serving the people you're supposed to be serving. When you do that, the people who don't want anything to change, and there's many of them, see you as just like you're going to annihilate them. And they make you the target. And related to that is, most organizations have a vision statement, a mission statement, etc. So if you're a little bit idealistic and trying to hold the organization to their values, all the people who may pay lip service to that, but really deeply do not want anything to change,
Right.
see you as a threat.
Interesting. And I love how I can't remember, Lorraine, if you have written about it or I've seen you talk about it on another podcast, but that fear, like that threat, it's so irrational and scary. And I think you've mentioned it as well. Some of them can get physically violent, threaten your family. I've heard some real intense stories with the behavior of some of the mobbers involved. I mean, it totally out there's no logic and it's completely irrational to the situation. Have you heard of these things as well?
Yes, absolutely. I myself did not face physical violence. They absolutely tried to. I had tenure, but they tried to get me fired to discredit me personally and professionally. So that was my experience. But because I've written about this and I do consulting around it, I've heard stories from clients about their homes being broken into, their emails being tampered with, threats of violence, etc., which is just horrific, and on and on, even after they left the workplace.
Correct. Right. I've heard similar things of the same and ongoing slander and defamation. Yeah, thank you for addressing that as well. And something else, I was reading a really interesting article the other day, and I thought, wow, that's really fascinating because that's not something I'd heard of. But I'll swing it by you to see what you think. The article was about, they didn't call it mobbing, but they said people in serial workplace bullies and their cohorts. And oftentimes, I suppose what's going on is if the target or somebody is scratching the surface a little bit, many of them have been involved in criminal activity. They're in jobs that they should not be, where there shouldn't be criminal activity. A long list of frivolous lawsuits against people and things that they don't, some of the people involved may not want coming out, even if you're not threatening them with it, because you may not know all of this. There's almost like an instinctual, if they're involved in a lot of criminal activity, there's almost an instinct that maybe the person that they're dealing with is not, and that causes some extreme discomfort. Have you heard anything of that sort? Does that make sense to you?
It makes sense. It hasn't been my experience. In my experience and most of my clients, it was really about incompetence.
Okay. Right.
Of not wanting their incompetence exposed. But the range of behaviors, I just wanted to say, the first piece I wrote about this was called The Injury of Mobbing in the Workplace. Back in 2010 is when I wrote that, and I still get people contacting me because of it. And then I wrote one more recently called The Craziness of Mobbing in the Workplace, in which I gave examples from my own experience and my clients of all the crazy, horrible, and some of the things that people do in the mobbing are absolutely illegal. Breaking into someone's home, spreading malice and lies about them. I'm trying to think. I think it relates to what you were talking about with the whistleblowers, of people who refuse to go along with sleazy activities, that can definitely make them a target as well.
Right. Even if they're not a whistleblower, but there's just almost a sense that they could be. Like, there's a value difference there, and there's a sense that they could be. And I have heard of that, Lorraine, and something else, you know, you were just touching on, and I'm curious about your thoughts of this, because it truly blows my mind. When you say illegal, that's been my experience too, is that oftentimes the people involved in this are doing actually explicitly illegal things sometimes to the target. Are they not, they don't seem concerned about legal ramifications when they're engaged in this behavior, any type, whether it's criminal or civil. And I understand that when you're being mobbed, you know, it's probably just best to get out of the situation, because these civil things can take years for, you know, and you're going to be subjected to psychological damage. But how, do you have any thoughts on why they are not concerned short-term or long-term about legal ramifications?
Well, the thing that comes to mind is I did get, the local union was part of my mob, but I was able to activate the state union, and they actually hired an anti-discrimination attorney who worked with me for a little while and helped me with some aspects of what I was going through. And when I walked into her office, the first thing she said to me is, "You have to understand that there's no law against being stupid or cruel."
Right. That's well said.
Seems like
Yeah. Yeah.
But there is, and there's lots of, you know, there's lots of borderline things. I mean, workplaces, if they run well, they run on grace, that we give people the benefit of the doubt, that we adhere to the spirit of what we're supposed to be doing, that we listen to each other. And there's so many things that don't cross that boundary to downright illegality that are absolutely morally wrong. And there's not much you can do about those if the leadership is willing to turn a blind eye or, you know, look the other way.
Okay.
Or is complicit.
And speaking on complicity, is management in most cases ordering or facilitating a mobbing, or could that go either way?
You know, there's a whole range. There's a whole range. People, you know, management is people. People get scared. People don't have skills to know how to deal with things. So some of it, sometimes it's malice, sometimes it's helplessness, or not knowing what to do, or really buying the big lie. You know, if people are spreading horrible rumors about you, and there's not much sheltering to it, then some people in the, you know, the C-suite or higher up managers simply believe it and don't question it. Or if they themselves are, you know, have inner fears about their incompetence, or they think that their arrogance means they're good leaders or strong leaders, they don't think they're doing anything wrong.
Right. Lorraine, I know you got out of this situation. Do you have any, I know we're not lawyers or anything like that, but if somebody is finding themselves in this situation, and there seems to be a lot of different opinions on that, and I like hearing different opinions on this. If somebody is in this situation, you know, is it best, if possible, to just walk away without a lawsuit and rebuild your life if you can? What is, because I know lawsuits and things like that, yes, you may have to do that, but I know it can drain more out of your life when you could be doing other things as well. What is the best, in your experience, if there is a best way for a target to navigate this with the least amount of damage to themselves and those they care about as possible?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a multi-pronged answer. So when I have written about this and taught this too, but the most important thing the absolutely most important thing is self-care, of getting help, of not, I ended up with PTSD, and it could have been a lot worse if I hadn't done things to protect myself and get support. So the first thing is to identify it. This is not right. This is bullying or mobbing. And then get out, if there's internal support available, look for it, get it. Get external support, which could be trauma-informed therapy, somatic therapy. And it could be other things you can do, like writing a book or something that can give you self-esteem. Inner work of affirming, you know, that you're good, and self-love, and surrounding yourself with light and pushing them outside. I also, one thing that was crucial to mine was forgiveness work. I wrote about this in my memoir, Angels and Earthworms. There's a chapter called College of Darkness, which is about my experiences being bullied and mobbed. And I write about this one defining moment where I was in my office and something egregious, I can't even remember, happened. And I walked out of my office. I was so filled with rage. It felt like my rage could burn down the entire college. And I scared myself. I thought, I can't, my heart will not survive if I carry this weight of bitterness. It will shatter into a million pieces and I won't heal. And I knew about forgiveness already. And I started praying for all these people, not because what they did was okay or right, but because otherwise it was too big a burden for me. So I prayed for their well-being. I prayed to be freed from bitterness and resentment, and I prayed to be free. And I know that's not necessarily an easy thing to do, but it was absolutely crucial. So all of that is in the realm of inner work, getting help for yourself, not believing them. Because one of the things I know, I was bullied as a child. And clients that I've worked with who were bullied and mobbed as an adults were also bullied as children. And it makes us more susceptible. It doesn't make us culpable, but it does make us more susceptible. So doing that healing, for example, one heartbreaking client I had who did not heal, she was in very bad shape. She had been abused as a child with a raging alcoholic father and had never healed. And then when she was bullied by her principal at the school she taught at, she just fell apart. So that's crucial. And then I know people who've sued and won, but you have to give it a lot of energy if you want to do that. And I personally believe that the best revenge is a life well lived, and that crafting an exit strategy, getting a lot of support until you can get yourself out of there, is best. However, I have had clients who were able to protect themselves, set boundaries, navigate what was going on, and the people involved left or changed, and they were able to stay. Wow. So I don't think there is one right answer, but I've gotten calls from this college, people who were in the same, getting the same experience I was. And they ask me, should I sue? Should I do this? And I say, it's up to you. But I truly believe that the best thing you can do is get the bleep out and create a good life for yourself.
Yeah. Well said, Lorraine. And I'm certainly no lawyer and nobody to give anyone advice on this, but the way I see it is sort of like a domestically violent relationship, and making plans accordingly, if that makes sense. That's personally the way I see it, and the way that I've been able to survive certain minefields in my life. Now, just touching on that, Lorraine, something I read in one of your articles, which I thought was great, and because you just mentioned something that I want to touch on about being extremely cautious about approaching your union or HR about mobbing because they may not know about it, or perhaps is it also because they may be participating in it? Is that fair to
Both.
say? Okay. Okay. So it's not uncommon that the union is participating in this, is it? It's not uncommon.
No,
Yeah.
not in my experience,
Mine either.
unfortunately, and HR.
Mhm.
I mean, I've met many wonderful HR people and trained a bunch of them too around this. But certainly, actually, what set me on my whole, one of the things that set me on my whole course in the conflict management field was the head of HR forced me to participate in a so-called mediation, which was everyone, the union rep, the HR person, these other people, they all ganging up on me and telling me how horrible I was. And I walked out of there just shattered. But I also thought, this can't be what a mediation is.
Right. I find that they'll guise it in that, like it's a mediation or it's an informal meeting, and we're all good here, and then the attacks will begin behind the closed doors there. Yeah.
But there's two more aspects of this I'd like to touch on, if that's okay.
Absolutely, please.
One is that something I learned from a wonderful woman who works with school mobbing. It's called the bully, the bullied, and the bystander. One of the key concepts is it's bullying behavior. And some people are always the bullies, or some people are, other times they're a member of the mob. Other times they might be the target. I saw that at my school, that people would become bullies or part of the mob in order to avoid being the target. So it's really important to talk about behaviors. So you don't even have to write off the people who are the bullies or the leaders of the mob. You can look at their behaviors and how to hold them accountable and change that. And there's things targets can do, and then there's things that they can't do alone. And then a lot of the people in this situation are what we call bystanders. They may be uncomfortable. They may be, there's a whole range. They may be sort of supporting it, but not actively, or active hench people. Or they may be very uncomfortable, but not know how to take action. And one of the things I teach people about is how to become upstanders, how to become allies in this. And that can help make a big difference for people as well.
Well, Lorraine, I'm just so glad too that you even coach about what mobbing is, because I feel like there could be bystanders in the middle of it that are like, this is crazy, what is going on? And they can't describe it, or they would sound crazy, or they don't know the word mobbing. They're like, it's bullying, but it's kind of really freaky and weird. So I like, just even identifying it can probably help some, not all of the bystanders, but some of them. So thank you for doing that. I didn't mean to cut you off there, if I did there.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say that I've also worked with people who were identified as the bully. And I don't see them as the enemy, because a lot of times I would never deny that there's people who are malicious and filled with hate. We've all seen examples of that.
Yes.
But many of the people who are bullies or even mobbers don't realize the impact that they're having on other people. And it can be more nuanced. For example, I worked with someone who was the assistant manager of a wildlife refuge. It was through the Department of the Interior. And she felt like her manager was bullying her, and he was very old school, treated her like a secretary because she was a woman, and he was engaging in bullying behaviors. But as I listened to her talk, I said to her, "Yes, you're right, and you're bullying him too." And she said, "What?" And so I gave her 6 examples from things she had told me about where she had undercut him, spoken about him badly, cut him off, etc. She said, "Oh my God, you're right." And so her awareness that yes, he was treating her badly, and she needed to, find better ways to have her boundaries and stick up for herself, speak up, but also that some of her behavior out of her anger and, her feelings leaking out sideways and passive aggressive kind of stuff,
Yeah.
that she was actually contributing to the problem and treating him badly too. And so I think that kind of more subtle dynamics, it's not so much the mobbing as the bullying,
Right.
but it can be very powerful for people to realize.
I think so as well, especially if it's just a person, a gruff personality, or, something like that, where they're not intending to, as you say, maliciously harm anybody. I think that's great, and that behavior is correctable in those instances. Thank you, Lorraine. What just kind of as we're getting ready to close off here, like what are you up to these days, and what are you going to be up to? What kind of work are you doing these days?
Well, I've been creating trainings for organizations. I'm working with the IT department of a university right now to create some trainings for their staff of how they can get along better with teams. So that's one project I'm up to. And I have individual coaching clients, including coaching leaders, etc. I'm looking for more clients right now. I want more opportunities to teach and to coach because I have so much fun. So people can contact me if they'd like to know more about my work. And I'm contemplating writing a second book. So that would be about conflict transformation. So that's something I'm thinking of, and working to promote my memoir, because I think it's a powerful story of overcoming some of the things we've talked about, bullying as a child and mobbing as an adult. So, and I'm still writing my blog because it's so much fun. I have over 160 blog posts at this point.
Your blog is
Isn't that cool?
fantastic. It's fantastic. I'm going to send everyone there. And Lorraine, where is the best place to purchase your book? I know you can on your website. Is it Amazon?
You can purchase my book through Amazon. It's available at Amazon as
Perfect.
an ebook and a paperback. And it's also can be ordered through any independent bookstore as well. I set that up on purpose because I love to support, I'm a big believer in independent bookstores and want to support them. So I did it through what's called the Ingram Spark, which means that whatever my local bookstore is, Copperfields, any independent bookstore can order my book and you can get it through that, or Bookshop, which is an alternative to Amazon that supports independent bookstores as well. And you can find all that information on my website. I have a book page.
Wonderful. And are you on any other social medias, Twitter or anything like that, where people can follow you?
I'm also on LinkedIn.
Okay, wonderful.
That's a good one to reach me through.
Wonderful.
And I'm on Facebook, although I mostly post pictures of flowers.
That's great, Lorraine. Thank you. I'm just so, as I mentioned, I'm just so grateful that you have taken that experience and really turned it into something to help others, myself included, because I remember that dark place and feeling like how are you going to get out of it? And it's a hole that seems to be an insurmountable climb. If I'm sure you remember exactly what I'm talking about, and that to have people like you out there makes a world of difference, I think, more than I can even express, because and as you've written in your articles, these things can end so badly, even way worse than we've talked about here, and in violent ways. And so I think it's very important to be like, okay, this person got through it, I can do that. They did it, so can I. And I think that's a huge part of the healing, at least from my perspective. And I am so grateful that you're out there and for the work you do. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and my audience today, Lorraine. The work you're doing is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. I love, helping people learn about bullying and mobbing and how to navigate conflict better. And it makes our world better. And that's why I love it so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm going to leave it at that for there and send everyone over to check out your work. Thank you so much again, Lorraine, for joining me.